Hello everyone, my name is Alvaro Perez and welcome to another video tutorial on how to use Adobe Illustrator for KDP. Today's session within the challenge was all about creating coloring books, which is something that I do quite a bit of. So I was hoping to show you just a couple of tips and tricks that I use to do so. In making these videos, the question that I've gotten the most from you guys is, where do I get my assets from and how can you get a hold of them? The unfortunate answer to that question is that I make them all myself. So it's not like I can just send you a link to download them or anything like that. But what I can do is show you what tools I use to make them. So today we're going to be focusing on the Shapebuilder tool, which I did talk about a little bit in a previous video, but we're going to be using it in a different way today. So I'm going to start off very, very simply. I'm going to select my rectangle tool, and I'm going to create a rectangle roughly the size of my entire document. Okay, now I'm going to go into my swatches palette, and I'm going to change that fill to a bright blue, and go into my layers palette, and I'm going to lock that layer and create a new one. So now I'm going to click on my ellipse tool, and I'm going to start making different ellipses of different sizes that I can then combine together using the Shapebuilder tool. So remember, if you hold the shift down, you'll get a perfect circle. I need to go back into my swatches palette and change the fill back to white. I've also changed the stroke to 3 points so that we can see it a little bit better. And I will continue to make some ellipses here. Remember, if you hold the space bar down, you can start to move your ellipses around. As you've probably guessed by now, we're creating some cartoonish looking clouds. All right, and there we go. So I've combined these 5 ellipses to create my general shape, but you can see that you can still see the stroke around all of them, and they're just individual shapes that are overlapping. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to get my selection tool, and I'm going to create a bounding box around all of them. And then I'm going to click on my Shapebuilder tool. I'm going to do this slowly so you can see it, but if you hover over any of these little shapes where they've overlapped, you'll notice that Illustrator has isolated each one of those shapes, and it treats it like its own shape. So if I can click anywhere within one of these circles and then drag my cursor through the shapes, and any shape I touch is now going to be combined into a larger shape. And there you see I now have a completed cloud. So I'm going to click on my selection tool. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift. I'm going to shrink that down. Let me create another one. And I will repeat that process. I'll create a bounding box around all of them, click on my Shapebuilder tool, and simply drag my cursor through all the shapes that I want to combine. And now, just to complete this very simple image, I'll go ahead and I'll select my rectangle tool, and I will create a rectangle here at the bottom of my image. With fill selected, I'll click on green. And there you have it. I have a very, very simple beginning to an image using the Shapebuilder tool. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my layers palette, and I'm going to hide these 2 layers. I'll add a new one. And let's try something a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to get my ellipse tool, and I'm going to create a petal for a flower, a very simple petal. Okay, I have to go back to my swatches palette and change the color back to white, and I'll increase it back up to a stroke of 3 points. I think I need to shrink it down a little bit. It's a little bit too big for what I'm about to do. Wrong tool. Alt and Shift, and I'll change the size of it. Okay. Now I'm noticing right now that I must have something selected under Preferences where the stroke gets scaled down as I create these images, as I shrink and expand these images. So if you don't want that to happen, you can go into your Edit and Preferences and you can change that. But I'm just going to go ahead and increase the stroke again to 3. Now I'm going to go to my Rotate tool, and instead of double clicking on it and filling out the information in the window, I'm just going to select the tool, and then I'm going to hold Alt down, and I'm going to click where I want the center of this flower to be. So when I click down here, I've now established that's the center around which all these petals are going to rotate. So to get the angle, I've already predetermined that I want 24 petals. So I'm going to take 360 degrees, which is a full circle, and I'm going to divide it by 24 petals. I'm going to click on Preview to make sure it does what I want. You can see how much it's going to rotate there. But I don't want it to just move the existing ellipse. I want a new one, so I'm going to click Copy. And there you see my new ellipse. If you recall, now to repeat that transformation, I can hit Control D as many times as necessary until I complete this flower. And there we go, our 24 petals. Now that looks pretty cool. It looks like they're all layered and stacked in a way that each petal overlaps the next petal on one side only. The problem is when we get to the last petal, and since it's on the uppermost layer, it overlaps both petals to the left and to the right of it. And so we need to fix that, and we can do that with the Shapebuilder tool. So I'm going to select everything again, click on my Shapebuilder tool, and now I'm going to take this first petal we did, and I'm going to take this side of it and overlap the last petal. Not sure what happened there. And now you can see every petal overlaps the next petal on one side and one side only. Okay, so that looks kind of cool, but it's still not very naturalistic. That probably doesn't happen very often in nature, so if we wanted this to look more natural, I have everything selected, and I'm going to go back to my Shapebuilder tool. And now I'm going to deal with every other petal on this flower, and I'm going to pull every other petal to the front, which would push all the other petals to the back, creating 2 layers. So let me do that. Every other petal, I'll combine these 3 shapes, pulling them forward. Oops, mistake. Control Z to undo. And this gives the effect that there are 2 layers of petals, one on top and one underneath. And I'll do this all the way around the flower. And there you go. Okay, a little more believable. Now you could leave this the way it is, or you could decorate that center of the flower. It just so happens that I already have an asset that I previously created. So let me pull up my flower symbols. You'll see what I'm talking about. And here is my sunflower center, which I actually got from a photograph that I turned into a vector here in Illustrator. So I'm going to enlarge that and then move it into place. Again, I'll use my arrow keys to fine-tune its location until it's exactly where I want it. And there we go. If I wanted to go and add a stem to this, I could easily do that. I'll select my rectangle tool, and I'll just create a long, narrow rectangle in front of this sunflower. That's a little wide. There we go, that's better. But as you can see, the rectangle is clearly in front of the flower. Doesn't look good at all. So I'm going to select everything. And then I'm going to click on the Shapebuilder tool again. And now I'm going to combine this upper part of that stem with the petal that it is in front of. And you'll see what happens is they combine together into one shape, pushing that stem back behind the flower. So there you have it, two very simple examples of using the Shapebuilder tool to create an image, which can be used to great extent in the creation of coloring books and puzzle books and activity books. I am going to do another video where I create a more complicated asset using the same tool. So I hope you'll tune into that. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below the video or in the Facebook group. Thank you for watching.